Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have a special guest on. Everyone knows you, Lonn friend, who's been writing and we've been reading your words for years. How are you?
Decades.
Decades, well.
You have you have to illustrate my time on this planet. Decades.
No, you don't. It doesn't matter. It's a drop of sand. Decades? The
Oh,
life on this rock, planet rock, it's
yeah.
years.
I know that.
It's
I'm
minute.
so I'm so into the cosmic calendar and how we're, to quote my old friend Bruce Dickinson, 2 minutes to midnight.
That's where we are. That's where
We're
we are.
about 30 seconds to midnight now.
On the
Oh my.
calendar. Yeah, especially in
Yeah.
regards to your post this morning. That was Mother Earth, huh? That was
Yeah.
I enjoy
Well,
your posts.
thank you, man. I just feel my heart is just so ravaged by the turn that our country's taken, and I've been so much about the goddess energy, probably my whole life, but the last 25 years since I did, Kundalini yoga and the sweet demotion part of my life, is that to understand that we really need to balance out the planet because we're way going too far left and too far right. So that's why I made that post because I just got into The Handmaid's Tale. I just found myself going down the rabbit hole of The Handmaid's Tale. Oh,
It's
but
funny.
you mentioned Benjamin Button, so everything with me
Listen,
is an anecdote, right?
I love that because I feel that way. I think you have as many puns and antidotes as I've ever seen. I'm like that. I'm a dad and I'm an IT and I'm autistic, so I'm like that. But I love it
This
that you've got these.
this
And
triggered a thought, a moment, and it was a moment. Uh, about 20 some odd years ago, I was doing some time at Interscope Records, and and A&M was merging with Geffen, and I found myself as Chris Cornell's product manager. Now I had known Chris from Bad Motorfinger and Super Unknown days,
right.
but here he was releasing a solo record and doing something different. And so I went to see him at the Wiltern Theater, a storied old theater on Wilshire and Western in Los Angeles, my
Hmm.
hometown. And I had a, I had a green room pass, and I was marching up the stairs and down the stairs just to say hi to people. And I'm on the stairwell, and it's dank, and there really aren't that many people. It's concrete, it's steel stairs, it's behind where people traffic. And I'm walking up, and Brad Pitt is walking down, and I pass him like this, and I stop, and I go, Benjamin Button. I just put my thumb up, and he stops me, goes, thanks, man. And he reaches over and he shakes my hand, and I pat my heart and I keep moving. I learned later that he and Chris were very good friends. Obviously, I didn't know that, but there's a reason why Brad Pitt is at a show. It's because he probably knows the artist.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, now I love that movie. I love that movie because it's about synchronicity, and it's such a mystical story. My favorite part of that film is, and it resonates with me because there are no accidents on this journey we're on. There's a point where the woman he loves, a sequence of events takes place, and she happens to be in the street when she's crashed into, which ends her, essentially her career, and hurts her life,
Hmm.
changes her life forever. But had she not paused and stopped and dipped into the shop and did all these multiple events, which what Jung called the confluence of events, it's that moment, and that was it, right? So that really hits me. That scene hit me because that's kind of how my last 25 years of my life, when I kind of lost the structure, and the quest for fame and fortune, all that just kind of faded. And I began to understand that I really I have no control over any of this. None.
None of us do.
Yeah. Anyway, so Go on,
Well,
Sean. I
well,
didn't mean
to,
to
well, to
interrupt.
that point, actually, I before we spoke, I read both your books, and I love them. I recommend them to people.
Thank you.
Um, First one is Life on Planet Rock, and then the second one is Sweet Demotion. And that one, actually, you'd think, me being a rock guy, I probably read every millions of rock books. I love Sweet Demotion. That is like a beautiful book that I can go back and read again and again because I am old and I have a bad memory and I can remember things. No, 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 because it touches a lot and it touches on a lot of a generation. You know, I like to say the expression you have like a leg on each side of the fence with this because, you know, it resonated with me with certain parts of my life and music and what's really important and what's the truest part of the form of art. Just like you say in a club, clubs are usually the grossest places ever. And there's no life and it's like, it looks like it should be like, it's like a bomb shelter. But then you put an artist in there and you get a little bit of art and creativity. And the whole place is aglow with energy and love. And when it's over, 3 hours later, when everything's pushed out, it's cold and heartless again. Because music, the bare love of music, not everything else around it, is the core.
There's
And
something, Sean, there's a Taoist expression that the room is not, it's not the walls. The room is not the
oh,
structure in the wall. It's what occupies the space in between. That's exactly what you just evoked. That, and you're probably a closet Taoist like I am. I think if we had
yeah.
A figure like Lao Tzu running countries right now, we would be in a lot less trouble than we are.
I'd be happy with that, and maybe we could put like we could Eckhart Tolle on some committee or some, you know, we get him in there, and we get all those guys in there. They all,
Okay, so you want a quick Eckhart Tolle anecdote?
I'd love
Okay,
one.
so there's two. First one is 2003. I'm just getting to Vegas during the beginning of my first exile, my divorce exile, where I leave LA for the first time. It's in the fall of '03, and I find myself at a Jane's Addiction show
Hmm.
at the Orleans Casino, and I make my way back and mostly to say hi to Perkins and to Navarro. I mean, I know all the guys, but I've always felt fond of Perkins ever since we went through the Brandenburg Gate together in
Yeah.
2000 when he was drumming with Tommy Lee's Methods of Mayhem. We made a 1 a.m. trek through the Brandenburg Gate. I was at the Rock and Park in Nuremberg, Germany. Anyway, so here I am now at a Jane's Addiction concert, and I make my way back and I say hi to Dave, and he's literally looking like the guitar guy that he is, shirtless, getting ready to take the stage with his guitar. I'm in the shadows and I'm right behind him. He goes, Lonn, what have you been doing? I said, well, I'm kind of going through changes now, man. I'm like in the middle of kind of divorce and I've just moved here. He goes, how are you getting through it? I said, well, to be honest with you, I've been reading Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And he
Yeah.
stops me and he goes, that book could save the planet, man. It's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
So here's a rock star saying, pausing me to say, I'm on the right path. I'm reading the right book. The second Eckhart Tolle story is this one. 2016, I believe it was. I'm at the Scorpions show at the Joint in Las Vegas. This is my second desert exile that started after my mom passed in 2000 in August of 2010 13 2013. I moved back to Vegas and I'm at a show and I go to see shows here when I know the artists or I'm moved by the
Right.
music. I don't go to envelope openings. I go to things that I feel like I'll get something. So my two favorite members of Scorpions are Klaus and Rudolph. I
Hmm.
love Rudolph because Rudolph is in that sort of, he has that evolved sort of mystical brain. So I go into the dressing room and I and I'm sitting with Rudolph and I said, uh, "So what are the cool things that have been happening, man? Not just the tour." He goes, "Lonn, the coolest thing, I had lunch with Eckhart Tolle."
Oh,
I
did you
said, "Where?" He
fly?
goes, "In Germany." I said, "Oh wow, what was that like?" And I'm not going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact phrases,
Yeah.
but he said that he really passed on to me that it was a very important moment. And not unlike this is so funny, Sean. Not unlike 2016 Guns N' Roses and the Cult, Dodger Stadium. My daughter's with me. She's about to move to New York to work for the NRDC as an environment activist for the next several years. And we're backstage, and I don't see any members of Guns N' Roses, and there's really no one walking me around, and I'm not going to see anybody, but I see Ian Asbury. And Ian Asbury I've always enjoyed conversations with him because he's got that brain too.
Yeah.
It's like Lemmy and Rudolph. They're thinkers, and they're not just going to tell you small talk. You're going to get into it with them. So I've got my kid, and I swear, I'm wearing an Alan Watts T-shirt.
Really?
Now, and it's funny because nobody stops me with an Alan Watts shirt, but Asprey comes out of his trailer.
Yeah.
He's got the white robe on. He's just off stage, and I'm wandering in, and he goes, "Lonn, great shit." I said, "Hey, Ian, this is my daughter, Megan." He goes, "Hello, Megan." And she goes, "Megan, do you like Alan Watts?" And she goes, "I love Alan Watts. My dad turned me. I listen to his YouTube lectures." And
Yeah.
he goes, "I had dinner with his son in London." And then he gets into a conversation, and we're enwrapped with this conversation. And
Yeah.
that was a significant moment. I'm with my daughter, and Ian Asprey's talking about Alan Watts' son. Thank you. Obviously, this isn't normal stuff for a lot
No,
of
it's not.
fans, but
No, it's not. But to me, that's
you get
fantastic.
it, Sean,
I
and
get it.
I
It's,
appreciate it.
it makes so much sense because the
Yeah.
power of so much of music that we bring is, I think people overlook a lot of it. You don't have to take it as whatever, but there's a reason for it. There's a lot, and the artists, and one of the things, everyone has their show. They're trying to do something,
Mhm.
but for me, this is not a profit-making show. Believe me, it's not anything about that. What this
Like my
is
writing
talking.
books. It's
Yeah,
not profit
exactly.
making.
Comes out of my pocket. This is about my name's not on the show. It's nothing like that. It's me just loving the art and the creativeness and what's behind it. Everyone's real people and talking about real things, and these are the real things. Alan Watts, that's so cool. Like,
I
you know,
know.
these are the things that are important in life. And
Sean, the only reason I mentioned that is because the first thing you said to me was, "I'm reading Sweet Demotion," and I read the part about you having the book
yeah,
with you, and that was the day that I had this incredible synchronicity of meditating in Red Rock Canyon, driving back to my apartment, and seeing the marquee of the Mandalay Bay says yes 30th anniversary, and I went like, and I turned my wheel. I said, "What?" And I walk in. I have no ticket. I got a couple names to drop. I had no idea it was that night, but I'm a huge Yes fan.
as I am too.
I saw Yes 1975 at the Hollywood Bowl and the Tales of Topographic Oceans tour, where they performed the entire double album, which John
That's like
Anderson
my favorite
wrote,
album. That's my favorite album by
which
them.
John Anderson wrote the lyrics inspired by the writings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Okay. Another one of those books, me and Steve Lukather, the autobiography of a yogi. Of course, George Harrison gave Luke his copy of the book. I cannot be
No,
so brazen to say I got mine at the lake shrine up on Sunset in Pacific Palisades while meditating there in 2000. Anyway, so I'm walking through the hall. I go up to the box office. I drop a couple names. They don't work. So I'm leaving. And oh my God, this is so synchronous with the passing of Alan White, the recent passing of Yes's great drummer, Alan White,
mm-hmm.
because I'm about to leave and this dude comes up to me, goes, "Lonn, friend." I go, "Hey, what's up?" And he says, "Hey, it's so and so from you. I met you at NAMM." I said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He goes, I'm Alan's drum tech. I said, you are? Oh, I remember you, man. He goes, what are you doing? I go, well, I wanted to see the show, but he goes, you are going to see the show. And he just walks me in, puts a VIP around laminate around my neck, places me at the soundboard, and I watched. I mean, this was Wakeman and Anderson and the late great Chris Squire. Do you know
You,
that Chris Squire and John Entwistle share the same birthday
I didn't.
or 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 death day? Oh, birthday. How weird is that?
That is.
I
That's
mean,
very weird.
they're both like giants, archetypes, four-string, fat string avatars of their instrument, and yet, because I was writing a thing for Entwistle on my post the other day on Instagram, and somebody posted something about, oh yeah, Chris Squire too. And I said, what? Here's another weird thing, Sean.
Yeah.
The Rainbow Bar and Grill, where I spent a lot of the 80s and 90s, it's not the same. They have Lemmy's statue, but the spirit of the place is
I've
the
heard that.
food, the
I've heard.
food's the food isn't good anymore and the prices are ridiculous, but whatever. It brings tourists love it because it gives them a taste of sunset in the
Right.
1980s and 90s. But Chris Squire used to sit at the front booth, and John Entwistle, when he was in LA,
Yeah.
he loved going to the Rainbow. And I think both of them, there are bass guitars somewhere on the ceiling hanging. I know Chris's, and Entwistle's maybe too. Anyway, that's what I do. I connect
You connect.
dots.
Well, I see. Well, I'm telling you earlier, I have autism, so I see a lot of connections, a lot. So I appreciated your two books, and I want to preface with people: take if you're just following along with us, take notes, and you can go back and read his books, and you'll kind of catch up a little bit. Because the
About my
first book,
books, very quickly, Sean. The first
yeah,
book, Life on Planet Rock, 2006.
yes, please,
7-Eleven. By the way, 7-Eleven was released 2000. I did not set on that date. Random House settled on that date. So
yeah,
that was kind of
crazy,
cosmic because I'm an 11 person. I wrote an 11 chapter in the second book. The second book came in 2011, was
yeah,
released in May. And I haven't been able to purge a third. The Sweet Demotion, thank you for the compliment. It took a lot out of me. I do have hundreds of pages of disorganized notes. I've been the last few years very unfocused and just kind of treading sand. It's a term I like to use for being here in the desert. I've been treading sand and evolving internally. Externally, my productivity has not been that great. I have a friend who writes like a book a year, Greg Prato, Prato, and he interviews me for a lot of his book because he writes about periods in rock history,
okay, yeah,
and he's so prolific. I mean, he's so prolific. And my friend Harvey Kubernick puts out a coffee table book every year. He's got like 17 books. I got two books, and I'm really not sure if there'll be a third. Maybe
yeah. Well, about
they're
what about your
hard.
promotion? Sweet promotion. This is it. You're moving up inside emotionally and intergalactically. You're Silver Surfer. This is it. This is
The silver Sean
that's
is
what I talk
called me a
about.
silver surfer.
That is what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna be the Silver Surfer. This is it. I'm gone. Galaxy. This snake skin is gone. We're done. This is just nothing. You know.
I'm right there with you, brother.
This is just something. And what's
My
great
way.
is, yeah. But is in the second book. So like the first book called you've been the gatekeeper. I know it's a little reference there for you. It comes
Mm,
in and it talks about. And you could have gotten the best last name because you are a friend of rock, you're a friend of people, you're very open, and that's what's led you to be who you are, you know, and through kindness and your love of music, and everything's unfolded from there, you know, looking into the
yeah.
books and looking at your life and watching you, and to that point though, you growing and sharing your ups and downs. You read a lot of books, you don't always hear the downs. No one ever looks bad in
Right.
their books. You laid out there. I feel
Well,
bad these times. I'm reading it. I feel all the emotions, everything. I feel up and down. I feel sad. I'm worrying about this and that. And I think I got out there how kind you are. How much you how how do you
well,
care
there's
about your ex and how you
you're
love your
if you're
daughter.
my daughter's number one in my
She
life,
absolutely
and
is.
I confess I haven't had a girlfriend in over 10 years. It's I'm a Leo. Like, I kind of like roam the pride lands. I go out and take trips to keep myself, engaged. But I'm really kind of in an existential sense, I'm a private person. And I've written many taglines for if I ever do write a third book. Well, I have so much material, but it would be the uh, the loud life of a quiet man,
Oh, I
essentially.
like that. I like that.
Yeah, I've got some titles, good titles, heavy mental.
I actually like the first one though because I think there's
Well, that would be the
you
subhead, the
the
loud
subhead
life
heavy
of a
mental.
quiet heavy
I
mental.
do love the puns there. That's good. But I think you have a lot to offer still. I think
Yeah.
this journey of yours,
Yeah,
and you know,
thank you for saying that. I really am. I'm going to be 66 in a month, and I I I I appreciate how I'm thought of. I'd say this to people when they say, "Why aren't you on Tinder? Or doing? Why aren't you dating?" I said, "Well, I am loved. I just don't have lovers, but I'm loved, and sometimes." Without the drama and the complexity that goes with that, it's okay. Now, my personal life isn't what I really want to talk about,
no, but that's
but I have a hard time sort of separating the public from the private, and my that's sort of how I promoted things
you
over
became
the
a brand. You
years.
became your own brand
Yeah, my own
accidentally.
brand. Yeah, accidentally, because I was a reluctant headbanger. I mean, if you know my history from reading
Yeah, I
both
do.
books, you know I'm a Beatles kid. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I choked up and wept watching Get Back.
I
I
it
mean,
was
it
the
was
best.
one of
Look,
the
if you
most,
look behind me, if you look, can you look down? You see that my George Harrison.
yeah, dude.
It's a Beatle Lego thing. I have all of them. I just haven't made them yet. My Beatles was my first band too. So
Yeah, that's the chicken soup for the rubber soul chapter. I think the opening line is, um, I emerged from my mother's womb on July 29th, 1956, but I was born on February 9th, 1964, right?
yeah,
And that what Get Back did was, first of all, it's the Lord of the Rings of no Peter Jackson pun intended. It's the Lord of the
it
Rings of
is.
music documentaries. It's so breathtaking,
It made me so
and
happy on so many levels.
and the Love Show is here in Las Vegas, and I'm fortunate enough to have a friend
Yeah,
who has been part of who's worked the room for the last decade, and I've seen it many times. I like to take people that come to town to visit me. I like to take them to go because you can't not appreciate. If you love music, you have to go to the source. You got to go to the beginnings,
hmm
and that's why we're in a city with Elvis Presley, and I'm really excited to see the new Baz Luhrmann film
yeah, I am too.
about Elvis because
Might even
Elvis.
tonight.
I know it's so hard when you have these super icons in cultural and in artistic history, and you approach them as an artist, like Baz is a magnificent artist, with a new take. Take a new take, like obviously what Peter Jackson did. I mean, we've been watching Beatles material. They were the
Right.
most chronicled, recorded, and filmed outfit in the history of music. There's so much, and it gets put out. The box sets and all the. Remember, Gary Gersh was putting together at Capitol Records that anthology box back
Yeah.
in the '90s, and he was telling me stories about. You can't believe the stuff that we're finding. There's just so much, and here's this filmmaker, from New Zealand unearths 50 hours of material that's never been seen. But we really didn't know how extraordinary it was. The fly on the wall stuff, the camera high picking up takes in the corner, the capture of George Harrison's leaving the band.
I love that. I love the fact they're teasing him, taking it out on him too. We should just get clapped in here. I like Yoko
The
Ono.
fact that Billy Preston saved the
Yeah.
entire session.
And he got props for that finally. I think more people need to know about what he said. I've read a million Beatles books, and I know you know all this history, but the fact that Yoko was in there, and they had good times with them,
And
and
Linda.
yeah, and Linda. But I'm saying because Yoko was and Paul, the story was always so
Yeah.
bad, but you see them getting along. I think those two invented noise rock at one point, right?
Well, here's the thing. What was it? Maslow, right?
Yeah,
I mean, she and John were in the Maslow, so her singing comes right out of scream therapy.
right. That's what I'm saying.
She and they, I remember I had this board tape in the '90s. I forgot who gave it to me. Maybe Mike Frazier or somehow I got a board tape of Linda doing a vocal in "Hey Jude," and she was so off key. And somehow this tape got around, and she took a lot of
Oh, I remember
heat
hearing
from
that line. Yeah, I remember hearing that one.
yeah, and I thought it was like people were mean to her, but I know from conversations with the great photographer Ross Halfin, who had shot infinite shots for Rip Magazine sessions and covers. He loved Paul and Linda, and he told me that they were the most endearing couple. That she turned him into a vegan. That they were super healthy together, and he said she's just a joy. She was just a joy to be around. And I kind of watching Get Back,
Hmm.
I could sort of see that because she's super young, right? And
Yeah.
she's coming from this a rather storied family, the Eastman family, and and yet they look so happy together. I can't tell you how when the greats pass and they're in their 80s now, they're all turning 80. Dylan's 81, but they just can't live forever.
No.
But I mourn and grieve and celebrate every passing. I'm just not sure how I'm going to handle it when Paul McCartney leaves the planet.
That's gonna be a hard
And
one for everyone. I mean, he
I think
just
that'll be
jammed.
the hardest one. Oh,
The
what the
fact, and
tour
I think
is
he healed Dave Grohl.
phenomenal.
You know what I'm saying? Dave Grohl publicly healing because Dave had to come out sometime after
Yeah,
losing Taylor, which is
yeah,
so sad.
no,
And whenever I
yeah,
hear that, I always think of their kids, their family. I don't. If I never got another album from somebody, that's fine. Being a parent, I always think of their family's loss, and that's where it feels sad. But he brought Dave out for the
yeah,
first time since then. That's the first step for him. For
yeah.
Dave, Dave lost two huge people in his life. I mean, those are huge. They're
Well,
iconic people, and he needs to move forward. So he has a family, and he has the rest of his life.
I will tell you this from the few but very significant times I've had with Dave. Um, and I've been able to hand him both books when they were each one when they came out. I was sign and hand them to him. He is one of the most he's beloved because he is absolutely authentic.
Hmm.
You see the joy and elation on his face when he's playing. That's exactly how he is. He loves people.
Yeah,
He's had the same manager, John Silva, since he worked for Danny Goldberg back in the '90s, since the Nirvana days. He's loyal to a fault. And that was an extraordinary loss, truly was. Because Taylor was loved too. But we're not going to discuss why some leave the planet earlier than they should. It's
we don't
just
know really.
artists are fragile, and you don't know what they're going through. And I the first person I thought of when Taylor died was Chris, because to me there was the similarities of there's this they're fighting a shadow. It's sometimes it showed up in Chris's music, Black Hole Sun, but a lot of times it's kept very private. I mean,
Yeah,
all the public offerings to Taylor was what a gregarious and affable and animated, truly loved musician he was and person. And so that makes the loss even harder, right? For fans and obviously for the people close to him.
right.
Yeah.
And I think people like to think that how they tie their losses to it too. How they're going to lose. How they lose. I don't think about that. Once the musician's gone, I don't think about a loss of the music. I think about
No.
a loss of them.
Yeah.
Which is a huge, huge thing. And I think there's an article that came out afterwards about Taylor from Rolling Stone where he's talking about his drug battle, and on some level it's interesting to hear that kind of stuff. But then, like one of the things I don't like doing the show, and I never do, is I hate when the public beats on musicians or celebrities, and they don't know. And I did this one time. It was so nice. When Stephen Piercy's Christy had reached out to me, and me and one other person, and I got to talk to him about when he talked about his cancer diagnosis, and it went
Mhm.
everywhere, like it exploded. And I was very grateful I got to share that with him. But one of the things I stopped to say was, when he was battling it, he may have had a drink or two or had other medication. He was struggling through cancer stuff. The internet was beating on him about being this and that. And I actually stopped and I said, "Look, Steven's not complaining about it." I said, "But I'm telling you right now, this is ridiculous. You don't know what people are going through to be bashing them online. If you don't like something, you don't like something. But you don't need to bash somebody because they're having their own personal struggles."
Sean, this is why I keep the page private, why I'm not looking for an audience.
Yeah,
People find me, they get me. I'm happy with that. I don't need numbers. It's a mean world. And I've never had the constitution to kind of be this public figure. It happened because of the alignment of Rip and Headbangers Ball and Hits Magazine and MTV and that time. But that time is long past. And I haven't been hustling, to use a late Larry Flint, my first media
your first boss.
mentor. Yeah, to borrow that phrase, I haven't hustled for a very long time. Now, I respect people like Matt Pinfield and others who stay really, and my friend Eddie Trunk, who
Yep.
I love how much energy he has, and we have wonderful hangs, usually on the cruise ships, on the cruise to the edge. And
I have to go to one of those.
that's Eddie knows all the metal people, and I've kind of transitioned into where they know me from my history, and I have the Rip fondness for a lot of these artists, but he's still helping them
right.
get cash. He is a wonderful proponent, and he knows more than I'll ever know about that genre. I had a moment, and that was it. But on the Prague cruise, he'll often come up to me, goes, "Lonn, can you help me do an interview with Marillion?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, man, no problem." He goes, "Because this stuff better than me." I said, "Yeah, but Eddie, you're so good at talking to artists, it doesn't matter."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really respect about him. But on the like the three two cruises back, there was the pandemic, so 2.5 years passed. He asked me to do an interview with Steve Hogarth from Marillion with him, and I have enormous history with Marillion, which only the fans that really have read kind of my stuff since the real early Rip days, know that my first feature article in Rip magazine in 1987 was not Metallica. That was in 80. That came a few months later in 88 with the Jason Newsted. The first road story I ever wrote was on the last Fish tour with Marillion Clutching at Straws, 1987.
Really.
And I did a road story. So that was my kind of road reportage. And I had met Fish, and I'd love Marillion's, Script for a Jester's Tear, Kaylee,
As do
Fugazi,
I.
because because they evoke Genesis to me, and anything that evokes
Yep.
Genesis, it's okay in my book. So when it's like I said, I'm non-linear, but when Marillion played the Saban Theater a few years ago, I was at the Rainbow with Fred Corey from Cinderella.
Right.
2 nights after the show, I'm at the Rainbow with Fred, and Steve Hogarth and Steve Rothery from Marillion walk in. Steve Rothery, who is, to me, he's the most Dave Gilmour-esque of guitar players in the prog or rock world. Going all the way back to the earliest of Pink Floyd, to me, Rothery evokes Gilmour, and he's a magnificent guitar player. But these two Steves, and Hogarth took over the vocals in after Fish in like 88 and 88. They come walking into the Rainbow, and I go, "Fred." And I've known Fred since Cinderella was one. They were on their first cover was Rip magazine, and I love Fred. I've never lost touch with him. He's just so genuine, and we talk hockey, and he took me to King games and introduced me to Luke Robitaille, who was a Rip subscriber. Anyway,
See?
I said, "Fred, that's Steve and Steve from Morel." He goes, "Lonn, trust me, you're the only one in here that's going to recognize them. Why don't you say something to him?" And I said, well, I'm gonna wait. And so they sat down, they started eating, and then I knew the manager then, and I asked him to take over a bottle of red wine to Rothery because he loves red wine. He's a connoisseur. I learned this on the cruise, on my first cruise in 2015, I think. And so I have a bottle sent over, and he turns around with his glass and he toasts me. And then Fred goes, there's your sign. Go say hi. So I leave the booth, I walk over and I go, good vintage. He goes, thank you, man. Very good. And I sit down with him. I go to Hogarth. I said, Steve, you're not going to remember this, but when Fish left Marillion, I was running a metal magazine called Rip Magazine. And there was a publicist who brought Nirvana to my office years later in 92, but she was your publicist at Capitol. Her name was Lisa Gladfelter. He goes, Lisa Gladfelter. I said, she brought you and Mark Kelly, the keyboard player from Million, to my office. And we went for a expensive Chinese lunch at the Sei Yang restaurant around the corner, which years later is where I went to lunch with Nirvana. And and he goes, we had lunch. We had lunch. I said, yeah, man. And you had just gotten the gig, and you were going to go in the studio and make Seasons In, and we had just a wonderful conversation. He goes, that's crazy, man. That was a long time ago. And he was so friendly and so cool that I just let it go. Like I know he didn't. I he didn't. It didn't matter that
Right.
that he has no memory. It was just a cool moment, and they're such gentlemen, Englishmen. And we ended up talking about politics and the fact that Brexit was leading to our, orange apocalypse, and it was a really good conversation. Now, I just say that because like all these things are just kind of jumbling together as you tap into these moments for me, and
Yeah.
that's what I really like about talking to somebody like you who
Well,
isn't
thank
here
you.
with like bullet point
I
structured
don't have anything.
questions.
I don't have anything in front of me. I never
That's how
prepare.
I prepared for you. Nothing,
That's,
no
I
notes.
don't have to prepare. I've lived my life. I know who I want to talk to. I read the book, was great, but it gave me some more insight. But
I have this photo that just emerged of me and my
ah,
daughter, which is a Ross Halfin outtake from I think the Injustice for All sessions. I think. Look at my kid. She's like 2. No, this is probably well, I don't know, but
how lucky. I actually step back
she's
for like
32. My daughter's 32 now, so
that's crazy.
yeah.
My youngest is 18, and I have a grandson. The When you talking about with Marillion, I was lucky enough recently to talk with Fish. Once again, he does not talk to a lot of people.
No, and I love him.
And I don't know if you saw the
I
interview.
love him.
We were talking about like political stuff. We were talking about this is his last album, stuff he's going to start. He wants to start writing. And he was nice. He's like I don't really talk to anybody either, but I liked something about me. He liked that connection, and I don't know what it is, but I'm so thankful, like with you and but once again, there's something about people and connecting. You know what I mean? And I think some of
Sean,
us are getting it.
my favorite fish time is I'm on the UK tour with Anthrax and Living Color
Yeah.
in the fall of '88. And it's groundbreaking because, first of all, no one had ever seen anything like Living Color in the UK.
Hmm.
So Vernon Reid is coming in with his Hendrix-like chops, and Corey is singing his ass off. They're
Yeah.
like metal, and so the Anthrax fans are, wait a minute, they're scratching their heads. They're still digging it. But I committed to do a cover story on all of them. It's the first time I put only time I ever put 2 bands together, every member on the cover of the magazine. So we pull into Edinburgh, Scotland, and I have Fish's contact info because of the story I did the year before.
Right.
So I reach out to him. There were no cell phones or emails or internet back then. This is just I called the number and I said that I'm coming into Edinburgh come meet me, and we'll see it. I'll take you to the show in Edinburgh. He goes, he says, Lonn, I'm taking you out to dinner, and then we'll go to the show. So he's 6'8".
He's yeah,
He's
he's super tall, and
giant.
his personality is another 6 feet on top of that.
Oh, incredible. So he meets me. He and we have fish and chips and Guinness. He introduces me to Guinness, and he takes me to the Star of Lothian in the center of Edinburgh. Shows me there was a brilliant song called Star of Lothian, and it's a sacred spot in history in Edinburgh. And he's telling me stories about his farm and his dad, and I bring him to the show, and all the guys in Anthrax, they're not tall. Fish is huge. He
Oh
goes,
my
Lonn.
god!
And Scott goes,
Next
Lonn.
to Scott.
He goes, Lonn, who's that guy? I go, that's Fish. He goes, and all we're and there's all these fans that are huddled around Fish, like munchkins. Fans are just he's signing their jeans and their pants. He goes, who is that guy? Everybody knows him. I said, that's Fish. He's from the Man Marillion. He's very famous in these parts. This is his hometown. And he goes, you brought him to the show? I said, yeah, he loves rock. And I introduced him to the guys, and he was charming, and the guys were so cool because the Anthrax guys are like, they still are like family to me. I mean, Scott and Charlie, I just, they're two of my, they're in the A-list people with Fred Coury. I don't
Yeah.
lose touch. I lost touch with a lot, and you only see at festivals at M3 or concerts here and there backstage once in a while. But I stay in touch with some of the people whose careers that hopefully Rip had a significant part in that.
It's like with Rip, no one's talking. It's just like these. Everything's online. It's just these nasty things. Why can't like people just talk to somebody? And I've been so lucky, and then just have a talk
You don't
and then
need
share
that.
positive stuff.
Sean, the artists, if they they are committed to their creative process. A lot of them are narcissists. They love, musicians love their gear and themselves and their fans and their chicks, and they're not always in the same order. But it's hard having that spotlight. Some of them succeed better than others. Some fall, and they can't handle it. The spotlight is bright and burns. It's
And
not
if you have a
easy.
tender soul, if you're an artist, you generally have a tender soul,
Yeah,
which makes it much worse. You
yeah.
spoke about that with we talked about tender souls. Steven Tyler. He
Well, that's another can of worms.
right, and but to
That
me,
is the
I'm saying I
title.
think
That's the title chapter to Sweet Demotion because he was having his demotion.
he was. But my
Yeah.
point is, you showed a good point of him. Is it weird? To, do you wrestle with yourself when you share that kind of piece? Though this is my only journalistic question because I'm not really. when I read it,
Well,
like you know what I'm saying, right? Because I always struggle with
I,
sharing
I, I,
stuff.
I don't consciously. I will never throw people under the bus, not consciously. Um, it's we don't walk in anyone's shoes but our own.
Right.
We don't know. I mean, I got an Instagram message the other day from a guy I don't know. He follows my stuff. His name is Dan, I think, and he said, "Were there any artists back in the day that just pissed you off, and that just pissed you off?" And I tried to answer it articulately because I didn't want to like drop names of maybe some unsavory moments or instances that I had because they were there. But I will tell you this in all honesty, over those almost a decade that I was at the center of that entire scene, um, I was treated really well by the music community, the industry, and it goes the industry, the artists, the fans, because it's about relationship building. And my acts, what I've always tried to do, and I could have been better at this over the last few years, but I have found my spots in pieces I've written that have been published in podcasts. I've done my own podcast, a couple of them, is to share the access.
Mm-hmm.
You've stood, you have stood where people can't stand. You've witnessed things. And I feel blessed by that access. I still, I there's no one I hold closer as far as of that world than Metallica. And when they put out their their black box, Lars asked me to write an essay, personal essay. And it was really funny because I got the phone call while I was in quarantine in Santa Monica in Los Angeles
Hmm.
at a beach house, an empty beach house, because I had tested positive for COVID on Christmas, 2 days after Christmas. Now I was just kind of waiting for like this. I was like waiting to die. I thought that, at my age, blood pressure issues, oh, I'm just going to, and there was so much terror and uncertainty in the world in December of 2020
Yeah.
that I woke up like every day just wondering whether my fever was going to bust and I was going to get a fever and stop breathing and stop tasting shit. And I got extreme fatigue, but I never got bad symptoms. And I did meditation and yoga every morning, and I drank constantly. And my daughter got me all this healthy vitamins, and she got me Erewhon, this high end health store. She's sending me over bone broth. I go, mate, this bone broth costs $18 a gallon. She goes, Dad, it's the best. I go, yeah, but Dad, just trust me. I go, okay. And she got me these drinks that had CBD in them, these vibe drinks. And over 18 days, I I went through a lot of changes, but I healed. I shared some of that on Instagram. But on the fourth day in, I got the call that uh, we're putting this black box together, and we're near the end of gathering all the testimonials. And there's only a handful, but Lars wants you in the box to write. He wants you to write an essay, and I said to Mark Ryder from Q Prime, well, you picked a weird time, Mark, because I'm like going through something right now. He goes, I said, when do you need it? He says, in 24 hours.
Oh my
And
God.
I said, okay, all right, I'll get it done. And he goes, Lana, would mean a lot. I said, I hung up the phone and I opened up my laptop and just like right there, I just started to write it. And what got me was this moment. I always, when I write a piece, I always look for my point of entry, and my point of entry is usually a scene that I've been blessed to be in, that I
Hmm.
witnessed. So my point of entry was a couple years ago. I went to Philadelphia to see Metallica play at Wells Fargo. And I wasn't supposed to be at the show because I was in New York City. I had no idea they were playing. None. But I'm on my Instagram and it says, and I see, wait a minute, Metallica's in Philly tonight. So with extraordinary alignment and serendipity and obviously relationship, I just send out like two or three messages. There's two people, my daughter's old boss, Ben from the NRDC, and my friend Larry, we've had many from New Jersey, who I have immense
Yeah.
love for. We've had so many concerts together, and I put this group together, and we somehow managed to get to Philly, and we're there, and it's all coming together, and it's just incredible energy in the room. And the guys are like, I can't believe we're here. Ben had changed his direction to come from DC. Rather than go back to Brooklyn, he went to Philly. Larry picks me up in his car, drives from Jersey to Manhattan. We drive out to the Wells Fargo, crossing the
Wow.
bridge named for a poet, the Walt Whitman Bridge.
Yep.
And here we are. And oh my God. And Bree works for Metallica. She said, meet me here. Lars wants to say hi to you before they go on stage. Okay. So I got my guys. We're in the shadows, the bowels of the arena. There's 18,000 fans just getting ready to get their asses rocked off by the greatest fucking band in the world. And I'm standing by the road cases, and the band starts to come out at the beat, prepare before the tunnel. And the drummer leaves the parade to come over to me, my mates, and his wife Jessica, who's standing there, Jessica Miller, who's standing right with us. Hey man, I'm glad you could make it. It's great to see you. And he's talking to me, and Ben and Larry are like deer in the headlights, look, watching this, and we have this exchange, and then he walks back, and I wave to James and to Robert and to Kirk, and then they go on stage and they do their show, and I just said, as I'm sitting here tying it together, and I'm sitting on this beach house, this empty beach house, wondering whether I'm going to get really sick. And I just think that's the moment I'm going to open this piece. That's what I want to share. And then I elaborate into the essay. And the essay appears. Now, I wrote it in 24 hours. I sent it in a day later. And Mark said, it's beautiful. I sent it to Lars and the guys. And it's in the box, along with some rip covers, and which it's very cool that they reprinted. Because that black record was the record that Rip chronicled the making of. It was a year of my life, a year and a half, to evoke the video, the year and a half in the life of Metallica, which me and my daughter, who was like 9 months old, that I'm holding in my arms when James offers her a beer. And that's where the Nothing Else Matters cameo took place, when the B-roll is being shot for that during those sessions. That was the summer of, that was like a whole year where I would just visit and be the fly on the wall and share it with the fans. So that was like, wow, I could get this done because I'm inspired by this band who still treats me like family. I mean, as big as they are. In Las Vegas a few months ago, Metallica came to Allegiant Stadium. Metallica was playing on a Saturday, and Billy Joel was playing on a Sunday. Friday, Saturdays. It was back-to-back stadium shows. Now, I've never done that ever in my life. And now at age, at 65, it's but I went to both. And the first night was extraordinary. And Billy Joel, who I've seen since the Turnstile tour in '76, who is one of my favorite performers of my entire life, it was the greatest weekend. And somehow I made it through. And then I wasn't seen for like 2 weeks after that. But and I don't party. It was just the emotional and energetic exhaustion of getting in and out of the stadium. But that's what music can do to you. It can give you this light. It could give you this life force that no matter how fatigued or tired or anxious or lost you think you are, when those heroes are on that stage, when those people whose music is part of your DNA, they bring you out of it, and they lift you up. And I guess that's kind of why at this age, I still, hey, Sean, I'm gonna go to Buffalo to see the boys on August 11th.
Oh, really?
Yeah, upstate New York.
That's insane.
I got a couple friends there, and these old relationships that are still sacred to me. And when you have that, it don't diminish. It does not diminish. No.
But you're not a fly on the wall per se. You're a fly on the wall when you're writing an article. But the artists look at you and they respect you as a friend because you're an honest friend. Not trying to be a pun intended, but as an equal. And you, in what you do in your art, your crafting, but it's more than just that, And that line in Almost Famous, you talk about don't get close to the artist. And I saw something recently. I was trying to watch the podcast, but just this one, because I don't want to speak like anybody else. They were talking about the thing. Don't trust them. The artist just they're trying to shine you on. I don't find that. I don't.
Lester Bangs said that to William Miller.
I know that, but I'm saying, and someone else said recently a real thing.
Don't be friends with them. Now
Well,
I
if he,
wrestled with that too because I didn't know whether I was their friend because I was the editor of Root magazine, or I was their friend because they really cared about me. Now, as the decades have passed, the relationships that have evolved and stayed strong are with the true friends, not just the artists who had pages in the magazine. Now, the distinction is important, but it's not a vital distinction. You mentioned Stephen Piercy. I mean, he is a survivor,
mhm.
indeed, and uh, he went through. We're the same age, and he went through rough days. I mean,
Yeah,
I know Stephen. I don't stay in close touch with him, but he's always been a terrific front man. He has great fans,
yeah,
and
he
he
sounds
was
great, and
yeah. Well,
he,
that's the whole
and he's,
thing.
yeah, I mean, he
How
was
do
lucky
they
enough.
sound now? Can they still sing? Can they still pick up an axe and play?
That's the
Or
problem
do they
is,
mail it in, Sean? That's
well,
a whole nother talk discussion. Like, is it just a money grab? Are they mailing it in to cash
that's
the
the whole
check?
tracks. Are they doing background tracks? And then there's, one of the saddest things right now the world's going through is, argumentatively, is Bon Jovi's voice, and everyone has a take on it. My feeling is, even if he didn't know, he's such an honored man that he's running a business, and with nobody working in COVID for so many years, if he stopped working, he doesn't have to do it. If he stopped, a lot of families are going to go without food and dinner that work for the Bon Jovi machine, and I don't think he'd hurt those people like that. I think he takes the hit partially because of that, because he wants to take care of people.
Yeah. Well,
That's my opinion.
we could
He's
go
a
an
smart.
hour on
No, he's a smart
My
man,
Bon
and
Jovi stories would take up a separate hour, so we're
I know
not
you
going to
would.
even go there.
That's okay.
But
But
his work ethic
it's
is
second to
extraordinary.
none.
I just did I haven't didn't do a TV interview for years, but these UK production company found me from London and sent me just such respectful correspondences. And they said they were putting a series together for the A&E, for the Reels, Reelz
Oh yeah,
network in
yeah.
America. It was called Frontmen, and they requested an interview with me about John Bon Jovi, and I was reticent because I said, you're going to want to talk about Richie and the
Right.
relationship and bad marriage. And I said, I just won't go there. I mean, I did the cover stories in 91, 89, 91 and 92, the Japan story, and they knew all this.
Right.
And the producer says to me, we want you to talk about his process and his relationships with and how much and the music and his magic as a front man. And I said, well, if it's about the music, then okay. And then I acquiesced and I did it. And I said, I guess it appeared in the reels on. I didn't see any of the frontmen series. I didn't even see the one I was in because I don't really want to look at myself on television anymore. I could look at YouTube clips of me as an animated, long-haired, bearded fool on Headbangers Ball. Friend at large. Hey, check this out, dudes! With my arms waving.
You're
I,
endearing
I
though.
I
You're
could see
endearing.
the yeah, that belongs in a vault and people can archive it and find it, unearth it every now and then to show me holding up the black record in my first ever segment. Look at it. See the snake? It's
Yeah.
huge. This is the new album. They gave me the vinyl to debut my very first Headbangers Ball. It was August 1991, and Cliff Bernstein and Peter Mensch sent me the cover to debut it. It was what was like, wow, thanks guys.
Yeah.
So I that was my launching pad for 2 years and I never had a script either, Sean. Even then, I just made like notes and new records would come out. I wore a different T-shirt because I wanted to support the
Right.
band.
And I'll do that
And that,
sometimes. I'll do that. I'll
yeah,
support an
that's
artist.
what. Well,
Sam
you
Ham.
got okay. So I just saw Jurassic World yesterday.
Okay. Well, yeah. This is Sam Ham.
Jurassic Kingdom.
He plays with Faster Pussycat and
Okay.
Dorothy, and he's got a work ethic for a young guitar slinger. You gotta check him out. I believe in supporting the artists.
That movie in THX, it was
Good.
almost as loud as a Metallica concert. I mean, it's almost too much. I mean, it's breathtaking, but it's almost too much.
That I wouldn't wear my hearing aids at the time. I have hearing aids, and
I
sometimes I
I
don't wear
go.
them.
I love dinosaurs because I'm a dinosaur.
Relatability. There we go.
Relatability. Yes,
That's definitely
indeed.
funny.
But they assembled all the characters from the first film, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
Just wonderful. And I'm a huge Bryce Dallas Howard fan. She made a film that M. Night Shyamalan made that is not well regarded in his canon, but I think it's a wonderful
Which
film.
one?
It's called The Lady in the Water, and she is this kind of mystical mermaid character that's in the apartment complex, and Paul Giamatti is the sort of kind of semi-autistic writer manager of the building who's searching for something, and she becomes this muse to him. It's a it's I'll tell you, you would love it. This
I'll
is
have to
the
check it out.
takeaway from our conversation. You're gonna watch that movie and you're gonna love it. I guarantee it. Because it speaks to art, it speaks to writers, and it speaks to the unknown, which Shyamalan does all the time.
Right.
He made the greatest movie about synchronicity in the modern era is Signs, and I've seen
Yeah.
it about 20 times because that's what that's about. I mean, how does his son survive? Because he had asthma, because he didn't get the poison in his lungs. That's the synchronicity, and
That
it's
was
about fear.
that was the
Yeah.
one in the beginning too, right? From the scene, and I think about this a lot. It's always when the car accident. He actually stars in it, and there's like a pole goes through someone's chest in the beginning. Is that
Well,
in that movie?
that's it. It's the flashback is that his wife
Right.
dies in a
Well,
car
that's
wreck
what I'm saying. I think of that scene.
because she was out for her walk.
Right, but
And
I
that
think of
moment
that
in
scene
time,
every now and then. Though it always pops in my head. I don't know why.
watch it again. It's also to me the first thing I loved came out in summer of '02 when I was wandering a lot. Boy, I was wandering, and I was in New York. Saw it first time in New York City, and the when I was at Arista in 94, 95, and I was scouting and trying to sign bands, and I signed the Bogmen, who are still my friends after decades. They never made it big, but they're just the most beautiful guys. They've all had, different careers. Well, I could tell you, this is a good story. So when I'm literally bleeding emotionally away from my kid, away from my only home I've ever known. And I'm going through the early days of my separation and divorce in Las Vegas. And I get a call from a friend of mine, Mark Joseph. Mark Joseph, I helped him get a deal for a book called Faith, God, and Rock and Roll when I was working for Merck Mercuriadis at Sanctuary Music, doing publishing in his publishing end of the UK. I went to the UK for 3 weeks in 2002, and I worked out of London, and I helped broker some book deals for the publishing and the book publishing end of Sanctuary Music. And one was a book called Faith, God, and Rock and Roll by Mark Joseph, which Alice Cooper wrote the foreword to. And so here's a couple years later, and he's been working in the film business, and he invites me to a screening of a film that Mel Gibson is making that doesn't have a distributor. It's not even finished. There isn't even a final cut, but there's a rough cut that he wants certain people to see, and he wants to gather musicians together. So he invites me, and this is in like the winter, probably November of 2003, and I'm just a month into my pain and my suffering of this change of life. And we meet. I go drive to LA to this Icon Pictures office on Wilshire Boulevard, and Mel Gibson is showing me and a bunch of musicians the Passion of the Christ.
Really?
Yeah, and he's
Wow.
got. I remember. I think Dave Mustaine was there. I think um, one of the POD guys was there. There were some Christian based
I was gonna say those are all guys that kind of
faith There were faith, Jars of Clay guy maybe. There were faith-based artists sitting around this table, and me and my friend Rex, who I brought with me, and we're watching this. And it's at the end of the film. Gibson, we're just it's it's so hard to watch. So he says, "Any thoughts?" And I swear to you, I raise my hand and I go, "Well, I'm probably the only Jew in the room, but I think the film's about forgiveness." And Gibson looks me right in the eye and says, "Thank you. That's exactly what it's about." And then other people chimed in, and we had just a nice exchange. People started to leave. Gibson goes into the kitchen to get a Coke out of the refrigerator. And I walked up behind him and I said, Signs is one of my favorite movies. You were great in that. And he turns around, he looks me in the eye, he says, "Did you see Charlie Sheen do me in Scary Movie? He nailed me." I swear he said, he nailed me.
That is awesome. That is,
he
nailed me.
nailed me. And I just laughed. The Gibson took a lot of heat for his anti-Semitism.
He did, but
maybe it's true. Maybe it was a bad moment he was having. I don't know, but what I exchanged with him was very real, and it was brief. I haven't seen him since, but Signs is an important film to me.
I think so
Really,
too.
it's
This
about
is
fear and faith and synchronicity. And I know where I was going, Sean. So while I'm at Arista, I get a tape in from this musician named Corey Sipper. It's a demo tape, and it's got four or five songs on it, and I listened to it. And the first song is called Crop Circles. And that was my introduction. I said, I love this song, but what are crop circles? Then I started to look into it.
yeah.
Oh my God. And that's how Signs opens. It opens with the crop circles.
Yeah.
And okay. So
we were enjoying crop circles back then too, because it was so amazing back then, and where it's coming from. And it is a mystery.
Mysteries, man. And now there's all this like UFO stuff becoming unclassified and disclosed. It's a very exciting time. Of course, to me, if I was an extraterrestrial and I was looking at our planet right now, I'd pass. I'd pass.
Maybe we're just like junk TV to them.
We're the Bachelor to them.
Yeah, exactly. We're one of those shows.
We're pointless, vapid, stupid reality television. Like what?
Yeah.
Let's go, guys. We're out of here.
With all the intelligence that you see, all the intelligence that we've done, and then what we do with it, it's ridiculous.
Oh, man.
I want to thank you.
Did you? One more. Let me just leave you.
No, I just didn't know. You had
we'll,
time, not me.
We'll do this again. I really appreciate your time and the nature of your.
Well, I'm more about your time is what it is. I'm sorry, I don't know your time. I could talk for days.
I ain't that busy. Interstellar. I think that's one of the most important movies ever made. Let the takeaway be: go back and watch Signs.
Yeah.
Watch The Lady in the Water, and please watch Interstellar. It's Christopher Nolan's 2001. It's an absolute masterpiece, and there's so much going on about our humanity and how we survive our darkest moment, and it's cosmic, and it imagines things, but it is also about synchronicity, and it's about a father and a daughter. It's about a relationship.
That's what it all comes down
kind to. Of everything at the core is about relationships.
It is. Well, I was going to say the other thing I've been thinking a lot, because I'm a space nerd myself. Jodie Foster, Contact.
Oh my God! That's one of my favorite. Why did Lonn and Joyce Friend send their daughter Megan to the Le Lycée Français private French school when she was 6 years old. Why did we send her to elementary and middle school at the Le Lycée? Because they showed us a video presentation, and Jodie Foster was one of their most storied alumni.
Oh, really?
And we looked at each other. We were trying to find the right school for Megan in LA, and we looked at each other and we just said, "Hey, it's good enough for Jodie Foster. It's good enough for our daughter."
Probably my favorite movie, and that she's done, and I totally get it. I would say that to tie those two together, Jodie Foster, Mel Gibson, and The Beaver. That was a dark comedy. That was enjoyable. Did you see it?
No. Oh, that's my takeaway. My cinematic takeaway.
It didn't get big reviews. It was like Mel Gibson was talking through like a puppet, and he was having like a breakdown, sort of.
Wait, what's it called?
I think it's called The Beaver. I'll have to look. I got my.
Like Leave It to Beaver? The Beaver?
Yeah. Yeah, like every entendre you'd ever say.
Sean, we could do an hour just on Contact.
Dude,
that movie is so important to me. Carl Sagan. That movie is so important.
We have so much in common. I think we could do karate in the garage. Or Chewbacca masks, you know?
I still watch first season Star Trek episodes when I'm sad. I go back and I watch The City on the Edge of Forever, the only episode written by Harlan Ellison. Or I'll go back and watch the episode Shore Leave because it was written by Theodore Sturgeon. When I got to Hustler in 1982, the then editor and director Bruce David said, "You're going to be the book editor." I said, "We have books?" He goes, "We review books. You're going to be the editor." And I said, "Well, who writes the reviews?" "Theodore Sturgeon." I said, "He's a sci-fi writer?" He goes, "Yes." He's going to, because the editorial director was a sci-fi nerd like me, and we connected on that.
Yeah.
And so for about 6 months, I got the manuscripts like typed on a Smith Corona on paper from Theodore Sturgeon, who wrote a great book called More Than Human, and he wrote a book called The Dreaming Jewels. Sturgeon, and he wrote that episode Shore Leave from the Star Trek episode, where it's one of my favorites, where they come out of the ground and they recreate. He sees Alice. Bones sees Alice in Wonderland at the beginning. He sees the hair. It's such a great episode. But yeah, and Sturgeon would come to my office, and he looked like a rabbi. He had a really long beard. It's something. I got to meet some of the most just eccentric. I met George Clayton Johnson, who wrote many of the best Twilight Zone episodes, including Ocean's 11.
I love the Twilight Zone. My favorite one is the library one when he breaks the glasses.
Well, that's Henry Bemis.
And
he's in the vault. He's in the vault when the bomb goes off.
Yeah. And the last thing he does is he breaks.
That's the most wickedest irony in the history.
It's the best, though. It's one of my favorite ones out of all of them.
He goes, "I've got time." All he wanted to do was read.
I know.
And then he leans over to pick, and his glasses break, and there's no way out of that.
That's it.
He's doomed.
But it's set up perfectly. It's a perfect style. Who played Burgess Meredith, right? No, is that who it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He was in two of the greatest episodes. He also played Romney Wordsworth in the episode where he was obsolete, the obsolete man. Fritz Weaver as the head of the state, and he says, "You're a librarian, you're obsolete," and he blows him up at the end and turns. I could talk Twilight Zone all day for you too. That's upstate New York. It's part of my attraction to upstate New York is the Interlaken area where Rod Serling is buried. I've been to his. There's no hoopla around his gravesite. It's just a plaque on the ground, and
he's not there anymore though. So that's the thing with graves, and
no,
No, I'm saying graves. People go to grave sites. I don't even go visit my relatives because I'm like, they're not there.
They're not there.
They're gone.
If we had Steve Walsh here, he'd be singing "Dust in the Wind." My dad's gonna be 93 next week, and I want to be cremated. Dust, ashes to ashes,
Yep.
dust to dust. Right?
You,
Pretty much
I want to.
feel the same.
Not only do I want to do that. I told my kids I want to cremated, and then when they do a service for me, I want to make sure there's fans, and I want somebody to spill it, so I go in the air, and everybody can soon see with my one
And come
last
back in
hurrah.
your face like the Big
Yeah.
Lebowski.
Everything coughing like, ah, they're like, ah, Sean, stupid Sean, one last time, get everybody all worked up.
God damn it, Walter! Does everything
Yeah,
have to be
yeah.
about Vietnam?
Yeah, we all ate you. Thank you, Sean. That is our remembrance. That's how I want to go out.
We'll take you up to Leo Carrillo Beach, where
Yeah,
where Walter is spreading the ashes, and they blow back into the dude's face.
that is so funny, but that's so true. We just had a relative that we did that too. We were at the beach. We actually had to stop for a minute and turn before we all wore the beach before because it was so windy, and we were in Maine. Yeah, it was the same thing. Yeah, we're like, oh, we should stop for a minute, and everyone was alive. This has been awesome. I do. I'll take you up on it. You want to come back on? I like to just talk about the weave and the tethering of life with music and the arts and the heart and the soul. To me, music is food to the soul. And it sounds so cheesy, but
It's not.
it's always helped me. It's always made me get through being autistic and being different and going through different things with depression and different things. What was always there for me? Music. I can
Yeah.
name an album for a death, for a funeral, for a
Yeah.
happy moment. I can name, I'm sure you could do. We could do side by side.
Absolutely.
And so to me, it's bigger, and it's smaller, and it's nothing. If you get that,
Well, it's Pete Townsend.
it
Nothing
is.
is everything.
Yeah,
Nothing. Everything is. Nothing is. Nothing is everything. Everything is. Nothing is
that is
everything.
the perfect thing we're gonna end on to say
Thank you.
goodbye to everybody. And I want
All
to
right,
thank
man.
you. Take care.
Peace out.